Morning, welcome to an extra edition of the Record Rangers podcast brought to you by NordVPN. I'm Douglas Dickie, here to give you a fan's eye view, and I'm delighted to be joined by Andy Newport, who's just been moaning about being sent to Spain to bask in the sunshine. How's things over there, mate, in the Rangers training camp?
Too hot, mate. Too hot for me. A pasty Scotsman like myself. No, it's very good, mate. Yes, just had a wee chat with some of the guys at the club. We'll go up to the next sort of hour to go up and speak to Derek McInnes and some of the players for some interviews that we'll bring you through the week. So yeah, it's been a good start so far.
Oh, if it's any consolation, mate, it was too warm here yesterday as well. It was absolutely roasting, so a bit more overcast today, unfortunately. But that's good. Good you're enjoying it. So listen, we actually have some breaking news in the last 15 minutes. It's been announced that Cammy Devlin is signed. Obviously, Hearts last season, another midfielder. Were you there for his unveiling, Andy? What was happening over there?
He's not actually met up with the team yet. I think he's still on holiday after his involvement with Australia at the World Cup. So I think it'll be probably next week before you see him pitching up at Ibrox. But you know, it's a deal that Derek McInnes has been keen to do. Obviously, he was a huge fan of him from his time at Hearts. A key figure in Hearts' push for the Premiership title that fell so short at the last game of the season. So he's been keen to get him over the line. I think it's a 2-year deal with an option a third. So that becomes the sixth signing of the summer. I think Derek is keen to make sure he gets the right types in, and I think he firmly believes that Cammy Devlin is that. He enjoys his tenacity. He's a big fan of his leadership skills, his work rate. I think there's probably an argument made that had he not had that sort of injury that around sort of just after the New Year period, that Hearts might have been able to sort of keep the momentum going in the final few weeks of the season. He was just coming back just as they were suffering that sort of blip in form that ultimately cost him the title. But I think he'll be hoping that he can sort of bring that sort of fighting spirit to this Rangers team. It's something that he's identified that this team needs. You saw the way that they collapsed in the final few weeks of the season. They need people that have made a sterner stuff than what we saw last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously his contract had expired at Hearts, so there's no transfer fee. I guess it's a kind of low risk signing, a bit like Shankland. He's worked with McInnes before. Maybe a bit of a no-brainer. We do seem to have a wee overload of kind of very similar midfielders with the same kind of attributes. Still maybe lacking a wee bit of quality in that area. That's the kind of general feeling. Can we maybe expect? It kind of feels like Derek McInnes is filling the squad now with guys that he knows he can trust. But at some point, we're going to need to look at real difference makers, guys that can make a difference. Are we kind of waiting until after the World Cup? Are we going to see what's going to happen with Nicola Raskin now?
I think they do definitely need to shift some. Yeah, they do definitely need to shift some bodies out. I'm told that Rangers are still looking to bring in another, maybe up to 5 players. Possibly a couple of centre backs, another full back, and definitely some wider options. You say that they're really well stocked now in the centre of the pitch. I think the priority now is to try and get some bodies shifted. The other news that we've heard this morning, we've had confirmed to us, is that obviously John Souttar's not made the trip. Neither has Danilo. Both of them being in permission to stay behind in Glasgow to finalise or to pursue options elsewhere. I think John Souttar has interest from England. Danilo has interest from Greece and from Holland. So those guys have stayed behind, and we'll be looking to see if they can get deals tied up that will offer them more game time. It looks like to me that both players have been told that they're not going to feature that much. Obviously, Rangers have got Manny Fernandez, who was the sort of standout breakthrough figure last year in the defence, and obviously Ben Godfrey's come in too. So in terms of John Souttar, it seems to me that he's decided, he's been informed that he might not get the sort of game time he's looking for. Obviously, was a regular up until the final few weeks of the season, dropped out, and then never got off the bench at the World Cup either. So I think from his own point of view, he'll want to be going somewhere that he's going to be guaranteed minutes. Danilo, I feel for him because I think he showed some positive signs when he first came in from Feyenoord. I think it was 2023, but a couple of really bad injuries. A bad knee injury has absolutely just killed his Rangers career, and he's just never really been able to get going again. So it's probably best for him if he goes elsewhere and can get somewhere that he's going to play more often. But I think you're right. There is, it looks to me that Derek McInnes has been made the priority, stiffening the spine of this team. This is where they collapsed. They were so easy to beat, they were so easy to penetrate last year. They didn't have the wherewithal to withstand pressure when teams in the final few weeks of the season were putting it on them. So it looks to me he's making sure he's building a team that's got the characters, the fighting spirit that can go the distance. But as you say, now you need to add the sort of wee, flamboyant touches, the bit of flair that's going to get you through defences when they're sitting in. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, there's still a few deals sort of bubbling away in the background. I'm just back from a holiday, so I haven't quite mastered the pronunciation of the lad for Partizan. Have you got that one nailed down yet?
And I'm not even going to attempt it. Scott tried it in the podcast the other day, but I don't want to make a fool of myself, to be honest.
Well, I'm told that one's still sort of, the club's in talk, so I think Rangers are still confident they can get that one done. I think they're keen on him. But I think he's, again, another one of these sort of holding defensive midfielders. I don't know too much about him, as I say. I've spent the last 10 days in Turkey, so upside down in a sun lounger, so I'll need to do my homework on him. But, there's definitely work to be done. As I say, there's still 4 or 5 guys still to be coming in before the transfer deadline at the end of August.
I mean, I think even kind of last season, for me, one of the big problems with midfield is we couldn't pass the ball to one another. We're continually giving the ball away, and which made us easy to penetrate because teams were able to win the ball in dangerous positions. I'm not convinced the guys we brought in or the guys we're being linked to are going to necessarily solve that.
I think I'm intrigued by the Danilo signing. I must say, I spoke with Kevin Phillips this week for a piece that went in the paper this morning, and he was so enthusiastic about him and really thinks that he could be a player that can be a sort of difference maker for Rangers. I kind of had it in my head that he's a sort of box to box, more of a sort of destroyer than anything else. But he said he expects him to get goals. He expects him to be a real sort of dangerous attacking weapon for Rangers and provide goals from midfield. And that's again something this Rangers team has badly missed. They don't get enough goals from around the pitch, certainly not from the centre of the park. So he's one I think I'm excited about. But I agree. I mean, you're talking about a Ross McCrory. He's certainly not a James Tavernier type, is he? I mean, I'm not expecting him to get 20 goals a season. Ben Godfrey, big. We've just watched him train a wee bit there this morning. Looks like a big lumpy lad. I think he can be, a weapon at set pieces. But I think, obviously Shankland coming in should be, Rangers should be hoping to get 20 goals a season at least out of him. But I think you're looking for some guys, especially in the wider areas. I mean, that's where Rangers again I've not really got the numbers. Certainly the numbers that if you look at the Celtic wingers have provided over the last few years, that's what Rangers should be aspiring to.
No, we've not really had that since the 2020-2021 season when we would like to see Aribo and Kent kind of pitching in. I'm just wondering what Cammy Devlin does for Lewis Ferguson, which still seems to be bubbling away. Should we forget about Lewis Ferguson?
Listen, I think that one would probably depend on what happens with Nico Raskin. I don't think Rangers are going to be able to sit here and splash, 17, 18, 19 million pounds to get Lewis Ferguson here if they still have Nico Raskin in the books, or they don't get the type of money for him that has been talked about. I mean, I must say I'm doubtful. I mean, I hear a lot of fans saying 20 million, no less. As much as he's having a great World Cup, I think the problem with Nico Raskin in his time at Rangers is just inconsistency. That we've all seen the types of performances he's produced over this summer, but there's been too many games where he's been anonymous or he hasn't dictated, he hasn't taken them by control, and I think that is the reason why Rangers might struggle to attract the kind of fees that some fans are talking about. I still think that his performance this summer will certainly do their demands for top dollar, no harm at all, but I'm just dubious about whether or not they can go and get the sort of 15-20 million kind of figures. And then, listen, I think Lewis Ferguson, again, I'm just doubtful on that. Again, Rangers are so well stocked in the centre of the pitch. You're starting to wonder where they're playing all these guys, because you've already got like a Mohamed Diamande, a Chochi Chukwani, Connor Barnes there, having just joined. He's just joined up in the squad today, having flown out late because he was seeing a specialist for just a minor knee complaint. So I mean, there's just, and you add in Dan Neil, there's just bodies everywhere. So and that vying for 2-3 places in the centre of the pitch. So I don't think that's a priority position. I think if Rangers have got 16-17 million pounds to spend, they should be focusing that in the top end of the pitch, especially the wider areas.
I mean, we might even need to look defensively as well. If that's Souttar away, Fernandes might attract bids as well. We obviously lost Giga, Aarons, no great loss, Tavernier. There's still a bit of work to be done at the back. I mean, I've kind of, my opinion on Nico Rask and Andy, I've been really critical of him, since I started doing these podcasts. But I've kind of flipped on it. I watched the game last night and he was comfortably, certainly in the second half, he was comfortably Belgium's best player. I think a guy, putting in a performance like that in a World Cup quarter-final, those other teams wouldn't even start thinking about it until the figure started with 2. I know in the past Rangers have been soft, I think, in the transfer market. But I really think there must be some mug Premiership team, mid-table Premiership team will come in with 20, 22, 23 million.
You're absolutely right, but and I do think there's a different approach now. I know certainly the small discussions I've had with Jim Gillespie, I don't think he's in any mood to be a pushover or a soft touch in the way that you're talking about that had perhaps the club had been previously. They're certainly not getting themselves into a position where they're sort of having a gun held to the head because players' contracts are running down. But I just think that Rangers don't really have that track record of selling players for the kind of fees we're talking about, and I think that does play a part. I think clubs might, rival clubs might think, well, listen, why are we spending £20 million when Rangers have struggled to sort of deal in those numbers previously. So I really just think that the thing we're asking is that as much as you'll put in the kind of performance we've seen this week, if you come back at the start of the season and play 2 or 3 games in a row where you don't really notice them, and I think if you're a £20 million player, you stand out, you shine in every game, you're an influence in every match, and I think that's where Raskin lets himself down. There's no doubt on his day, as we've seen at this World Cup, he's a fantastic player, fantastic talent, but I just don't think he influences games in that way enough, certainly in a domestic sense.
We've obviously got another Rangers player hopefully playing tonight in the World Cup, Dilo Asgard. I'd like to see him get some more game time. He did play well against France, but another guy that's attracting opinion and attracting attention from elsewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be incredible to see a Rangers player in the semi-finals of the World Cup, especially one that was so much maligned throughout the season. I think the first time we would have players in the semi-finals since 1990, probably, or guys that have played. I know Arthur Newman had signed in 1998 and whatnot, but I mean, what an opportunity for him.
I mean, it would be incredible, especially as you say. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's Derek McInnes driving away now. No, it would be incredible. I mean, as you say, I mean, I think Taylor Arsgaard's a guy that frustrates the life out the Rangers support, isn't he? I mean, he's it's clear as day. He's got ability, he's got talent, but I just don't know if the Scottish game's maybe the best environment for him to show that. It's all just a bit rushed at times. It's all just a bit physical. I'm not sure that's maybe what he enjoys. I think you've seen at the World Cup when, especially with the heat, maybe the pace of the games has been a bit slow, and he's been able to sort of get his foot in the ball and show his qualities. So listen, we wish him well tonight. I'm sure there'll be a lot of members of the Tartan Army hoping he has a really good performance. But it's I'm not too sure. I've got a horrible feeling that England are going to be doing something at this World Cup that some of us might not enjoy.
I don't think Asgard's going to get anywhere near the pitch, so I don't really think it's much of an issue. He seems to come in only for dead rubber games, so but never mind. Anyway, obviously, best wishes to him. Andy, we'll wrap it up there. That sangria is not going to drink itself, so I'll let you shoot off and enjoy the last of your sun. When you back tomorrow?
Yep, first thing back tomorrow. So
Back
You'll
to
have
reality.
plenty of these. Yes, unfortunately, yeah. Thankfully, not get the school runs to have to bother about come Monday morning. But yeah, we've got plenty. There'll be plenty of interviews to come from this. I think we're speaking to 5 or 6 players, and obviously we're speaking to the manager as well. So there'll be more than a few bits to come from him over the next week.
Good stuff. Make sure you're cooked for that. Right, cheers, Andy. Catch you later.
Thanks, Douglas. Cheers, mate.